Hi, and welcome back to the next episode of Facilities Unfiltered, the built reality, where we navigate the space where theory meets real world chaos, sponsored by AkitaBox. My name's Josh.
And I'm Nick. And today's episode is From the Navy to the Future of FM. And our guest with us today is Kris Stoddard. I'm really excited to have Kris. I'm just going to tell a quick story about the first time her and I met. We were supposed to have an hour-long meeting to talk about something work-related. But immediately I saw her knowledge and where she came from, and we geeked out for 45 minutes just talking FM. It was one of the greatest conversations we've had. So, Kris, thanks for being with us. We know you started your career in the Navy and now are the CEO of GoldenWolf. So tell us about yourself and your path and how you got here.
Yeah, so I joined the Navy right out of college and was commissioned in 1991. I served my first duty station as at Camp Pendleton. You guys will love this. So I watched the Marine. I worked in facilities design, but I was very involved with the Marines in watching their maintenance program. They had these massive whiteboards, and they had all of their call orders written up on the whiteboards. That's how they managed the things. And I was, fraught with danger, right? But yet that's how they did it. They did it that way for years. And then the real property was in one of those green logbooks, the green military logbooks, and they would have all of their military property was listed in that logbook. The reliance on institutional knowledge and single point of failure was huge. It was like the vulnerability was amazing. So I got to serve a lot of interesting commands. I went to a flag aide position with post-Cold War era budget cuts, and that's when I got to see my first dashboard and really start to understand what KPIs were and how you track those. It went from there to my first public works officer position, where we started our AIS, our annual inspection survey. And they went out and they followed the old MO 322 guidelines written from 1977. I don't think they've ever changed, but they put it all down on a pen and paper, put it into a spreadsheet and old dot matrix printouts, right? That are like inches high on your desk, and you mark them up with pen and paper and sticky notes, right? You're trying to track throughout the year what's going on. That's how we did things, right? So, and then I got progressing on into larger and larger installations. And we became more and more sophisticated in our collection and use of the data. Really, you can see the transition, I think, was great. And when we built in Builder and getting those databases that really help transition you into more predictive rather than reactive maintenance. So for me personally, I've been a lifelong learner. So I've gotten pretty much every certification you can get, from PE to PMP to CEM. I've got a couple of masters. I love learning new things, so I'm always involved in that. So once I retired from the military, I worked for a couple of companies, including Lewis Berger Power, where we deployed expeditionary power throughout the world. So anywhere they needed power, we'd send a power plant with some people to operate. So taking on GoldenWolf, I joined 2 years ago to help out with operations, global operations, and we're not much smaller. We only have about 110 folks. But in any given week, we've got operations going, both CONUS and ONCONUS. So it's kind of a natural fit for me. A lot of military folks in our organization, so we all speak that same kind of language. So it's been good.
Very cool.
That's awesome. You bring up your love of learning, right? And obviously, at the Navy with things like the, onslaught of builder and transition, I know it's still done somewhat manually and old school, but there was that transition, during your time there and you got to see it firsthand. What was it like to be there during some of those transition periods? Because I can imagine as somebody who likes to learn and take on new things, it was like, oh, cool, a new toy, let's go figure it out. But I'm sure that wasn't the feeling across the board as things started to change. What was that like?
Yeah, I mean, we always had so much more need than we had money, right? So trying to get to the point of how can I better tell my story? Like what information do I need to be able to tell my story better? Mm-hmm. That's where Builder really comes in and helps you focus on it. I think one of the things the military, it was very good at it, and it is that mission focus, right? So you can really be able to take that mission focus and slice the data to figure out which buildings you need to focus your message on, if you will. And that's one of it. But yeah, no, I think there were a lot of civilians that were not too happy with it. Like, I don't like change. Change is hard. I don't know how to put this in here. I keep getting this error message, right? And just how to use the systems. A lot of our systems are not that intuitive. I think if you remember the old days of the DOS programming, and then when we got Windows, it's like so much easier. And now our programs are just so intuitive. Those early programs were far from intuitive. They were difficult.
Yeah. Absolutely. And you touched on a couple things in there. I came from the owner side of private sector facility management for a long time, and I've always been really intrigued about the military and kind of really the forefront of facility management and modern day FCA methodology that we still follow today. So from your perspective, from an FM side, what has the military got figured out or doing that we haven't yet adopted on the private side of facility management?
Well, I think there's some things that are similar. I mean, I do think in the commercial sector, they still do have that institutional knowledge and continuity. There's still that technician down there that knows exactly where everything is and where their problem children are, right? They know exactly which system is going to cause them problems. I think it's really in the ability to transition between understanding all of your systems and understanding which systems are critical, and how do I communicate that to my leadership to show not only the financial impact, but also a mission or operational impact. Like, these are the things I need to watch out for and really focus in on. I think the military is really good at that. I think, I was deployed to Iraq as a public works officer for Al Assad Air Base. Mm-hmm. And, that's where you're taking facilities management to a really extreme level, because now you're trying to keep that combat environment operational at all times. There's a lot of impacts if you don't, right? Your impact is not just discomfort, it's potentially impacting the lives and mission of the people downrange.
Mm.
And I think when you start focusing in on that level, that you get hyper focused. You know exactly where your problems are and exactly where you need to focus your energy.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a different level of stress. We talk about on the civilian side the stress of maintaining buildings, but I don't think anything can relate to that. So transition a little bit here, right, from where we've been and what we've done, and we've transitioned to these better tools with better data, and boy, with AI coming, and automation, better software than ever before. Yet organization after organization, I mean, we've partnered on some things, and we look at some of these organizations that we talk to, and they're still drowning, right? They're still reacting. They're still chasing the fires with the hose doesn't have enough water in it, right? And they don't know how to classify their deferred maintenance. They don't know, to your point of, they don't know even in many cases how to define what's mission critical. And so being able to zone in on the things they should really focus on, a lot of times we just see them not even being able to come to a conclusion or agree on what mission critical is, because you have competing voices happening in these, public and private institutions that all want the attention on them, and they're the squeaky wheel, and they should get the most attention because of X, Y, and Z, right? And so, what's actually stopping? They have all this data, right? What's actually stopping them from using the data they already have? And why are they struggling to, use this data to make decisions, which is frankly what you all do best, is, your data collection and, your ability to dissect that into mission critical and help them explain their story. But why are these owners struggling so much, in your opinion?
Well, I'm gonna refer to something that Bill Gates said. Technology is just an amplifier, right? So if your underlying FM strategy is reactive and you apply technology to it, you're just going to get really better at being reactive, right? You're not really taking that and adjusting it to something that is more proactive, right? Because your behavior is reactive. So I'm using an analogy, like trying to fix a reactive maintenance culture is like by buying a new software system is like buying a treadmill, but not actually getting and expecting to lose weight without actually getting on it. It's the same thing. You're not fully utilizing the tools that you have to look forward and start thinking about being proactive. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
I think that's the trap that a lot of people do, is they put this software onto their system without really addressing their underlying behavior and approach.
Do you think software brings that to light and enables them to deal with it in a more visible way? Or is this just kind of like a, hey, we need to get to the root and not expect an instant fix?
Yeah, I think you have to get to the root of it. I mean, if what happens is you get a faster warning that a problem is occurring and you go out and repair it, you're still not addressing.
No.
You're not being proactive to the problem. You see what I'm saying? The problem is that you're just admiring your backlog, right? You have a better picture of what you have that you need to fix, and you're not looking forward and creating that story and really understanding the core of your systems to know where you need to be putting your efforts.
In our world, we like to relate that to quit buying an FCA every 5 years and buy a partner or a program, right, that helps you capture the data and maintain the data, right? The root of the problem that most of these organizations have in planning is planning becomes this cyclical thing, at least in our opinion from our observations, that they're like, oh, our data is so bad now that we should really have somebody tell us what we're dealing with now. And they get it and they spend so much money on it. And then they don't maintain the data. And 5 years later, it's like, I guess it's really bad again. We should go hire another firm again. And that's the root of the problem, is we need to change our behavior around that. And that's a story, like, we love that story, right? But yeah.
But that's what I think, that's what happens, is they have never changed their processes and procedures and communication to be able to, program the money, to be able to create the projects, and to be able to forecast where you want to be in the future. But if we had all of the money in the world, that would be great. We could solve our problem in 5 years. We never do have that much money, right? So you really have to be able to figure out, the most cost-effective way to package projects, where your absolute mission-critical systems are. Where do you have a no-fail situation that you need to plan for, and work that way? Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, switching gears a little bit, with the standards that the Navy and the Army set over the past decades, and even the kind of the standards adopted in modern FM, looking forward, what do you think those standards need to change to? How do we need to adapt for modern facility management moving in the next decades?
Well, I mean, I think interoperability between systems is key. And I think Josh hit on that with being able to, talk to systems one to the other. I think resiliency in climate frameworks is going to be important. Where are we going to go in our climate issues? I mean, we're seeing some really strange weather these days. What's going to happen, and where should we be positioned, for energy shifts? I am excited about thinking about predictive human-centric standards, if you will. So if you are able to, not just clean the same building the same way every time, but be a little bit more understanding, like, okay, I've had 100 people visit this bathroom, now it needs this cleaning. I have had, being able to respond to the use case rather than just every day I do this checklist. And I think that gets us a little more efficient, right? I think that's going to be where we should be going, is setting temperatures on entire floors based on the density of humans in the room, right? So if you have a 9 to 5 setting every day, this is the temperature that is going to be. I think it's very inefficient. I think if you could figure out how to track how many people are in a space, say there's 10 people in a massive space, you're not going to cool it to the same level every time, right? If you could track it to, like, I've got 100 people in this same size space versus 10, I need more cooling here, less cooling here, and be able to really, track it and be more efficient with all of your operations. To me, I think that's exciting stuff, right? That's getting to the point where now you're really pushing the levels of efficiency that we haven't considered before.
Yeah, and to that point, that leans right into the interoperability and the open API and the open nature of these things, because, as we get, right, I was at a conference a while ago, and they're like, we just turned on the smartest building in Chicago. And it was this new office building and everything was censored. I mean, everything, right down to light bulbs working, whatever. And it's like, cool. We now have 120,000 data points in a 100,000 square foot facility.
What do you do with all that?
What do you do with it, right? So it's exciting. I like to geek out about it and get excited about what we could do. But I think there's going to be a learning curve and a data overwhelm and right as we start to turn on these smarter and smarter buildings of how do we actually utilize that many data points at once?
Yeah, but I mean, I think at the same time you could create some specific goals. Like
100%.
I want to do this, and I think digital twins is a huge opportunity to address your mission critical facilities.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you've got 5 systems that you say are absolutely mission critical. Set up digital twins and manage all of those systems on digital twins for ensuring complete mission, execution every time.
Absolutely. I think it's here. I think some people are doing it, right? One of my favorite quotes is the future is here. It's just unevenly distributed, right?
Yes.
We can see examples of people going to that extent today, and we can see that there's proof in the pudding. We can see that it works. Scalability is still a little lacking on those things, but the fact that it's happening even in small pockets gets me really excited for the future. With that said, it kind of transitions into the closing question we have for you, which is speaking of that future and all the cool things that are going to come in the next couple of decades, based upon your experience and what you see coming, what advice would you give to a 25-year-old who just got out of college and is starting their first job in facilities management and wants to build a career here? What do you have for that person?
Yeah, I think I've got 3 things. First, learn the business, not just the building. What is it that's going on in that facility? Learn what's critical. Learn what's important to that business, whatever it is. Talk to folks. Number 2, get out of the office. Don't spend all of your time in front of a computer looking at dashboards, fun as they may be. Get into that mechanical room, talk to the tradesmen, find out what their worries are, talk to your people. You find out so much by talking to folks that have been around for 20, 30 years. They know a lot of stuff. And then finally, embrace the mission. Whether it's a big, huge installation or it's a single building, do your best, work with pride in what you're doing. And I think it'll all show and you'll have a lot of great experiences along the way.
Well, I want to thank you again for joining us and taking the time to bestow all of your knowledge on us and your experience. And again, thank you for your service. And with that, want to sign off. And again, stop fighting fires and start managing the heat. Thanks for joining.